Welcome to another In Wheel Time podcast, a 30-minute mini version of the In Wheel Time car show that airs live every Saturday morning, 8 to 11 a.m. Central. Yes, channel.
Hey, it's the In Wheel Time car talk show coming up. Channel 13, weather forecaster and auto enthusiast, Mr. David Tillman. Konrad has This Week in Auto History, and we'll get you caught up on the stories making car news this week, coming up in this segment of the In Wheel Time car talk show. Howdy, along with David Ainsley. Mars still out with COVID. King Konrad DeLong. We always need more Jeff Zekin. I'm Don Armstrong. Thanks so much for joining us. Why are you smiling? Are you still back?
No, just because you're picking on Mars.
No, he's smiling because he's awake.
Still out with COVID.
No, he's just proud of that pedicure that he got 3 weeks ago.
Oh, boy, let's not. We're done with that.
Are we done with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to read this bio here because I want everybody to know. I'm proud to know this guy.
I'm proud to have him on.
Chief forecaster David Tillman came to JBC 13 in late 2000 from WMC TV in Memphis. He worked there as that station's meteorologist and received an Emmy for his coverage of a snowstorm that hit that city. David's a member of the American Meteorological Society and the National Weather Association. And in 98, he received his seals of approval from both organizations. After graduating from Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi with a Bachelor of Science degree in meteorology, David began his broadcast career. He was the weekend meteorologist at WAPT TV in Jackson. A year later, he worked for the National Weather Network during the weekends and produced weather segments. There are 35 television stations and 45 radio stations across the United States. Born in St. Louis, David and his wife Patricia have 3 children, David, Brianna, and Sydney. David, it's an honor and it's a pleasure to have you on the air with us this morning.
This has been a long time coming.
I know it. I know it has. I know when I first met David, he said to me, "Well, I used to be a car guy," and I said, "You did?" Well, that piqued my interest right away. Of course, I've always wanted to be a weatherman. As a matter of fact, the late Doug Johnson said, "Hey, man, why don't you do weekend weather over here?" This is back in the day at Channel 2. And I said, "Well, I don't know anything about it." He says, "Just go and get the aviation weather manual, read up on it. I'll teach you what you..." And, of course, I had long hair at the time, and I was on radio then. And I thought, I don't have the confidence to do that. I'm good in radio.
Now he flies around in a helicopter without air conditioning.
Yeah,
telling us about traffic.
There's that. But David, I'm always impressed by your weather forecasts. We love to have you on the air and see you on the weekends especially. And now it's expanded to almost 7 days a week most of the time, I think.
You know what? I was just sitting here just a moment ago while I was listening to you guys. And I'm looking at the latest weather data here because I'm in the ABC 13 weather office, of course, a brand new weather office. And, of course, it's tropical weather season. So I was just looking at some of the latest data to see what this thing near Florida might bring us. And the way I like to gauge it is it going to give us enough rain for us to turn off our lawn sprinkler for a day or two? And it kind of sort of doesn't look like it. I think that dry ground we have is just going to suck up every drop of rain.
If we get
So we're going to be okay, but San Diego and LA are going to get hammered.
You know the weather is weird when Houston can't buy any rain, and we're about to see record rain in San Diego.
Wow. That's crazy. Well, I want to talk to you today mainly about your automotive background. You've been a car nut forever, haven't you?
Yeah, I think it started when I was about 5 years old. I had 3 loves as a child. My love for cars and weather came about the same time, about 5, maybe 6 years old. And then later on, as I began to get closer to my teen years, I got into sports and basketball, being my main sport, but following baseball, from St. Louis, Missouri. People say the top baseball city in the country. I was way into Cardinal baseball as well. But my love of cars started when I was 5 or 6. And I remember living on Kennerly Avenue in St. Louis and looking about a half a block down the street at the corner there, and all these cars would be passing by. And I got to the point where at 6 or 7 years old, I could name every car that passed by.
Absolutely, yes. I can relate to that, yeah.
We all did that, yeah.
Now, here's where it gets a little weird. Here's where you might, David's a little weird. And this is where my love for the mechanical side of cars came about. I could sit next to a car and I would test myself to know what kind of car it was just listening to the exhaust note. Okay, so you could know the difference between a Ford and a Mercury, between a Pontiac and a Oldsmobile. You certainly knew when a Corvette or Camaro or Mustang, was next to you. But I could tell, what car company built that car just by listening to
that
the
is
exhaust.
crazy.
There used to be a commercial about that where the little kid would be up in his room and the parent would say, "What is that?" And he named the car, the
Well, that was
horsepower.
David. That was how he got started at TV.
Tillman.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
This is really crazy too. You could even smell the exhaust and know what company it's called.
Yeah, well, back in the day, yeah, exactly.
So, did you
that is
work
a
in the
little
auto
weird.
industry somewhere?
What's that?
Did you work in the automotive industry somewhere?
Well, when I became a teenager, I guess, I knew I didn't want to work in fast food like most kids, and I love cars. Kind of got that from my dad. And I ended up working at, I'll just give you my quick resume, 3 different Firestones, 2 different AutoZones. I was a service manager at a tire place called Tire America. I worked at a place called National Auto Parts. And then I worked at a tire place in St. Louis, historic place. I mean, they've been open since the 20s, Telly Tire. And they're actually still open now.
They're still in business, yeah.
Yeah, I worked for and under the son of the founder of the business. His name was Chuck Telly. And then he had 2 sons, Mark Telly and Scott Telly. And Scott Telly was my immediate supervisor there. And while I was there, I was in the 2nd graduating class in the state of Missouri for safety and emissions inspection. So in the late 80s, it grew from, when you would take your car to get an inspection, from just getting a safety inspection when, they would look at your brakes and toot your horn and make sure your lights work, to an emissions inspection. So you had to put the prong in the tailpipe and
Sniff it.
Put it through the computer. So I was in a 2nd class, graduating class of being able to do that in the state of Missouri.
Crazy. Okay, let's move up to today. What kind of car do you drive?
Today I drive a GMC Yukon. I've had it for 17 years. It's a Yukon Denali, and I think it's the best vehicle I've ever owned. 6.2 liter. That was the first 6.2 GM produced. The engine they had before that was the 6.0. I owned that one too. And when they came up with the 6.2, I guess I got caught up in all the hype about it. And
Bigger is better.
Yeah. And so I got the 6.2, and I was so impressed with, that variable valve timing and how you just had power. It didn't matter, what speed you were going, you hit the gas and that thing would just take off, and it had a really good exhaust note to it. So I've been driving that for years. I've come close a couple of times to trading it in on a new one. But when I went to the dealership and found out they wouldn't give me but $3,000 for it, then I said, you know what, maybe I just need to hold on to it.
There you go.
And since the last time that happened, I've driven to California a couple of times. I've been to Colorado a couple of times. I drove to Mount Rushmore by myself in it. I went to Washington, D.C. in it. And
Been a pretty dependable ride.
It's pretty dependable. Now, I have had to replace, pretty much all the major components. After about 12 years, things just start to go. But I think when you compare it to what you would have to pay to get a new vehicle of that same type,
Right.
I mean, it's just no brainer to me.
Yeah. A new Denali, and I don't know if you're short wheelbase or long wheelbase. A new Denali long wheelbase is going to push $100,000 today.
Yeah, and I was just looking. I have a long wheelbase, and that Denali Ultimate certainly caught my eye, and but it scares me just a little because I think the 2007 that I have was one of the last vehicles that were just not so completely loaded with electronics that you get to the unreliable side. I don't know if I could like buy a new one and trust that after 5 years, the electronics wouldn't just go. I mean, the electronics in the truck I have held up. I still have the original ECM or ECU, whatever they call it now. And hey, it still works.
Yeah, I drive a 2004 GMC Yukon as my daily, and it's bulletproof. I mean, I say that now. Hopefully, I didn't just jinx myself. But yeah, it's pretty fault free.
And right now in today's times, we have no chance of being caught in a flood with any of our vehicles. That's for sure.
Certainly today.
Yeah, and see, I use mine too. I mean, call me crazy, but I storm chase from time to time.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
I usually do it with a station vehicle, but if I'm at home and I'm off work and I believe there's going to be tornadic thunderstorms within, say, 3 or 4 hours of the house, I'm not going to drive into work to get a company vehicle and go. I'll just jump in my Yukon and go. And it's so nice you need a vehicle with a lot of power, and you need a vehicle with good traction. Mine has the all-wheel drive, and It has the lock-in rear differential, and I've never gotten stuck in it. I've been in more than a foot of snow, and you're right, it's bulletproof. It's a great.
You got some decent tires on there.
I only put Michelin's on it.
There you go.
That's
there
good.
you go.
I put the LTX on it because I travel with it. I used to be a tire man. I'm very sensitive to tire vibration, and I hate it. So when I first bought that truck, I'll never forget this. 17 years ago, it had the Bridgestones on it, and we could not get the vibration out of it. I ended up going to Discount Tire, and they did I forget what they call it, but where you match up the
road force balancing.
Yeah, road force balancing.
Where they match the high spot in the wheel to the low spot in the tire.
They index it.
Precisely.
Yeah, they actually what they measure is the sidewall stiffness as it rolls around the tire.
With pressure.
Pretty high-tech balancing system.
Yeah, with a pressure system, yeah.
Well, that didn't take the vibration out. So the guy told me, he said, look, you're not going to get that vibration. You're going to have to get the Michelin to get it out. And he said, I'll trade those out for $400. And I said, deal. And I used to sell Michelin, so I know, how good those tires are.
That's exactly right.
And I've been at Michelin ever since.
Yeah, we always used to say, if you have a problem, just put a Michelin on. It'll solve it.
Are you into motorsports at all?
Not way into motorsports. I watch it from time to time, but I'm not way into it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think any of us are way into it. We're just casual observers.
Oh, we stare at it endlessly when it's on TV.
That's right. I grew up in the drag racing world and did NHRA drag racing marketing and PR for a Top Fuel team for a year. And a year was plenty for me, but I still enjoy watching professional drag racing, and I have a lot of drag racing friends, and so I'm prone to that. But all of us, I guess, we've all gone out to, the park that doesn't exist anymore out there in Baytown to watch drag racing. You got to meet many of the drivers that were in the professional ranks out there, and it's a great, fun time for all of us. And I don't know, I guess we're going to have to travel up to Dallas now, up to Ennis, to the drag race up there. Did you ever go to any professional drag races?
I have not been to any professional drag races, but it does kind of bother me that in all that time, I had buddies that worked at the station that were there all the time, and that I didn't go out there to Baytown before they closed. But it's something, the closer I get to retirement and just enjoying.
You're not old enough to retire, David. Don't even talk to us about that, because, listen, I'm a lot closer or past retirement age, but I don't know what I would do. I mean, I enjoy working,
When I say retirement, I mean just stepping away from maybe what I do one of these days, but not
giving up,
not being active. I mean, I'm still going to be very active. I think I'll be a storm chaser for life, really. I mean, I love doing that, and and I do have something to tell you.
Please do.
Talking about the road force wheel balance.
Yeah,
and this is something that maybe you guys can relate to. I used to use that wheel balancer that was on the car. Have you guys ever used that?
Oh, yeah. Lean your forehead on the car, and you hold on to the little knobs that spin the wheel weights around and the weight amount and stuff, and put the electric motor on it to spin the tire up to speed. Oh yeah, I did it plenty of times.
Yeah. Well, mine, you would put the electric motor on it to spin the tire to speed, but they had these sensors that you would put on the control arms. They were magnetic sensors, and the magnetic sensor would tell you how to balance a tire.
Okay.
Well, I used to have these guys that would race, these cars, these Porsches and Corvettes, and they would come into Telly Tire, and when they figured out I knew how to take all the vibration out of that front end, and they could do 150 miles an hour without vibrating. I mean, they started coming in droves, and they would give me $20 tips and whatnot. But the whole gig was up in the late 1980s because BMW started manufacturing aluminum control arms. Okay,
so I couldn't put the magnet on.
You couldn't put the magnet on it. So, and then, I mean, I guess everybody does now, but that was kind of the beginning of the end of that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, front wheel drive came in too. So that kind of messed everything
I go
up.
back to the bubble balancer.
Oh yeah.
The bubble balancer. I saw a place the other day. I don't remember where it was. I saw an actual bubble balancing machine. I thought, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
They're still around.
Yeah.
I guess it's good enough to get it going down the road for 50 miles an hour.
But it's not going to clean up a small vibration in there.
No, it will not. Well, so what do you have in the weekend forecast for us? More hot weather and maybe a shot at some rain on Wednesday?
That's pretty much it. We've been optimistically advertising maybe we don't hit 100 on Tuesday when this rain is supposed to come in, and I wouldn't be I don't know, I'm beginning to lose my confidence in that.
Well, David, let me ask you this. I thought about this last night. I thought, when is this high pressure bubble that we've been over now for a month? When is this going to move away? Or
what does it take to push it away? Is it just a change in the jet stream?
I think it's a change of season. The way I look at the hurricane season, and this is probably true 4 times out of 5, you look and see where that ridge is going to set up, and that lets you know if you're going to have a big year for hurricanes or not. And you really know in the month of June that heat ridge will set up someplace in the country, and where it sets up in June is typically where it stays all summer. And if it sets up over us like it's been, it makes it really hard for hurricanes to get in here. If it sets up over Atlanta, Jackson, Mississippi, then that puts us in just the right orientation there to where if something gets into the Gulf, it would come our way. But it's usually the changing seasons that heat ridge finally begins to break down. And on a year like this, I mean, the only other year I know of is 2011. That might not happen until November. I mean, we might be well into the 80s through October.
Wow.
In a situation like this. It has changed subtly because now it's centered over the Midwest, but there's nothing to say that it won't reposition itself right over us again.
Jeez.
As we head through the next month or so.
David, it is absolutely wonderful to talk to you, and so much fun, and we sure appreciate you taking the time, and also thanks to the management for letting you come on our always shaky car show here, because we go off on these tangents.
Don's in charge.
Yeah, because we go off on these tangents where we're talking about Konrad's pedicure. So thank you for bearing with us. Okay.
Sure, and maybe next time you have me on, I can share some of my repo stories with you.
For sure.
Over that little fact.
All right, well, we're going to definitely book you. Let's talk next month, next 6 weeks or something, if we don't have a hurricane cooking.
Put you on as the repo man.
Hey, I got plenty of stories to tell, and I'd be happy to do it.
We look forward to it. Thanks again, David.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you.
David Tillman, ABC Channel
cool.
13 weather forecaster. Great guy.
Meteorologist.
Okay, let's talk now about This Week in Auto History, and Konrad has that. Do you have that?
Yep.
Oh, good.
So in 1901, Charles Yant drove the first automobile up to the summit of Pikes Peak.
The man's name was really Yount.
Y-O-N-T, Yount.
Okay.
And he drove a 1899 Locomobile steamer up the 14,110-foot drive. And you got to remember, back then, it wasn't nearly as easy to drive up as it is today.
Did they have some coal stops on the way up?
Well, I'm sure they had to stop to refire it. Is going up
and get some water along the way.
Get some water, yep.
God.
And then in 1902, German engineer Felix Wankel, the inventor of the rotary engine that would later be used in race cars, he was born this week in 1902. The Wankel reportedly came up with the basic idea for a new type of internal combustion engine in Wankel's mind when he was only 17 years old. Quite an innovative internal combustion engine in the way that it worked. And they could make a lot of power, but man, were they oil burners. They just couldn't get the seals.
Was it 3 spark plugs in it?
Yeah, they just couldn't get the seals to hold up, so they burned a lot of oil. In 1907, the Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost passed its 15,000-mile official trial with flying colors, showing off its 7-liter engine, right? 7-liter engines, kind of the Corvette 427 is a 7-liter engine.
That reminds me of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Yeah, I don't think that was a Rolls, but yeah, that same generation of vehicles.
Design.
It had a 4-speed overdrive gearbox, and the trial made the Ghost's reputation worldwide and gave Rolls-Royce the name Best Car in the World. There were a total of 6,173 Silver Ghosts ever produced.
Wow.
Stunningly beautiful vehicle for that generation. In 1966, the first Chevrolet Camaro drove out of the manufacturing plant in Norwood, Ohio. The 67 Camaro Coupe was named just a couple of weeks before production was released. It was originally supposed to be named Panther, and then they came out with Camaro, and Camaro was French for something like friend or amigo or
shaved
buddy.
legs or something.
Yeah.
Ooh la la.
Pedicure.
In 1984, after close to 30 hours of deliberation, a jury of 6 men and 6 women unanimously acquit former automaker John Z. DeLorean of 8 counts of drug trafficking in Los Angeles, California. The Detroit native and son of an auto worker, DeLorean began working at Packard Motor Company as an engineer in 1952, and he rose quickly at Packard, and later he went to General Motors in 56, and at GM he worked for Pontiac, introducing
GTO,
both the GTO, the Grand Prix, and the Firebird while he was at Pontiac.
Brilliant man.
And then moved on to Chevrolet and introduced the Vega.
Whoops.
Yeah, from genius to
oh my
God, what are we doing?
You can't win them all.
And then in 1991, this week, Mazda Motor Company announced it planned to enter the luxury car market with the Amati. After several other high-end brands.
Oh, my God, I completely forgot about that.
You know, and do you ever drive? Did you ever have one?
No.
Yeah, they weren't anything
ugly.
super wowie, but the Amati was Mazda's version of a luxury car. And you think about back then in 91, you know, you had Toyota kicked off Lexus, Infiniti, or Nissan kicked off Infiniti. Now you have Hyundai has kicked off Genesis, and the success of some of those other upper luxury brands from those Asian imports are pretty successful.
Lexus.
Pretty successful car divisions.
Yeah.
Amati was a bomb. You know.
Yeah.
So, and that's it. Back to you, Don.
Well, you know, it's funny because Honda did Acura.
Yep.
And they did okay.
I thought Honda did wonderful with Acura. The problem with Acura was it was known as the Legend and the Integra. They weren't known as the Acura Legend or the Acura Integra, even though they were. The brand name of the model line became more important than Acura.
You know, it's funny because when the marketing comes down to it, you think about the way that Japanese have a different perspective of marketing things, and it's not all been great.
Yeah, well, tell that to Bud Light.
Shall we move on now?
Yes, please.
Let's transition to something else.
Good clip. Kia America continues to chip away at updating its large pool of vehicles targeted by thieves following viral social media videos demonstrating how they can easily be hotwired. Automaker staged a mobile service event in Atlanta for owners whose cars have been impacted by the crime wave. Of the 4.5 million Kias on the road without engine immobilizers, only 3.2 million are eligible for the patch because they have internal alarm systems, which is what the update enhances. Hyundai vehicles have been part of the crime wave as well. 4.5 million Hyundai vehicles on the road without immobilizers. Like Kia, not all of equipped with burglar alarms. Of 3.8 million eligible for the patch, only 19% have been updated. If you have not had your Hyundai or Kia updated and you have an engine immobilizer, you need to get it updated. Trust me on that, because somebody's going to get her.
Take it on a joyride.
I mentioned this last year. I'm going to mention it again because I think that it's important that we keep up with this. A hypothetical 10-day strike against the Detroit 3 by the United Auto Workers would result in more than $5 billion in economic losses, according to the analysis from Anderson Economic Group. Strike by the UAW against Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis could cause a recession in Michigan and take a bite out of the nation's GDP, according to recent analyses. A strike is becoming more likely as the September 14th contract expiration draws near, and negotiations between the UAW president, Shawn Fain, and the automakers appear to be making very little progress. A Biden administration averted a rail strike last year by passing legislation to prevent a work stoppage. Of course, we were just coming out of pandemic then. Federal intervention could also play in if a strike were to occur to the Detroit 3. Ford, as we mentioned earlier, putting a $300,000, 800 horsepower Halo atop its Mustang lineup. It's taking aim at European supercars. The Mustang GTD revealed Thursday evening, billed as the most powerful street machine legal pony car ever, and is based on the Mustang GT3 race car that will return to Le Mans. Ford says the car was entirely designed for performance. It's a race car.
All right, just a couple other things about this week in history. 54 years ago was Woodstock. This week. And then also 30 years ago, Robin Ventura got 6 hits in 1 inning against Nolan Ryan. But that was Nolan Ryan punching him in the head 6 times.
And those are car related.
Yeah. The In Wheel Time Car Talk Show continues after a quick break. Stay with us.
The original group of Loopy Tortilla restaurants will have you telling your family and friends just what the original recipes mean when it comes to the best fajitas in Southeast Texas. Founder Stan Holt invites you to visit the original Loopy Tortilla near I-10 and Highway 6. Here's the original house that inspired the design of all the rest and the original charm that helped make Loopy Tortilla the go-to destination for Houston Tex-Mex. Speaking of original, nothing can compete with the original lime pepper marinade that everyone will agree makes Loopy Tortilla award-winning beef fajitas the best anywhere. Loopy Tortilla Katy is another location that gives you the same quality and service Houstonians have come to expect at Loopy's. It's located just off I-10 and the Grand Parkway at Kingsland Boulevard in Katy. Find yourself in Aggie Land? Head to the Loopy Tortilla in College Station, located just around the corner from Kyle Field. It's a great place to enjoy those famous frozen margaritas before or after the game. Headed east to Louisiana, stop in at the Loopy Tortilla in Beaumont. It too's on I-10. You can't miss it. The original group of Loopy Tortilla restaurants invites you in for the best Tex-Mex anywhere. You own a car you love. Well, why not let Gulf Coast Auto Shield protect it? Houstonian John Gray invites you to his state-of-the-art facility to introduce you to his specialist team of auto enthusiasts. We promise you'll be impressed. Whether you're looking to massage your original paint to a like-new appearance, apply a ceramic coating, install a paint protection film, nano-ceramic window tint, or new windshield protection called ExoShield, Gulf Coast Auto Shield is where Houston's car people go. Curbed your wheels? Instead of buying new, why not have them repaired? How about a professionally installed radar detector? Gulf Coast Auto Shield does that too. Get a peek inside the shop and look at the services offered by getting online and heading to gcautoshield.com. Better yet, stop by their facility at 11275 South Sam Houston Tollway, just south of the Southwest Freeway, and get a personal tour. Gulf Coast Auto Shield is your place to go for all things exterior. Call them today, 832-930-5655 or gcautoshield.com. The award-winning In-Wheel Time Car Talk Show is available on the most popular podcast channels out there in 30-minute episodes. We realize our 3-hour live show can be difficult to catch in its entirety, so now you can listen every day to a convenient, fresh 30-minute episode. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Audible, along with a dozen more. In Wheel Time has the most informative automotive guest interviews and new car reviews, along with popular features including Konrad's Car Clinic and This Week in Auto History, along with automotive news headlines. Our live broadcast airs every Saturday, 8 to 11 Central on InWheelTime.com, the iHeart app, and on YouTube. Be sure to say hello when we're broadcasting from the Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise Inn, Autorama, and the Houston Auto Show, among others. Now, it's easier than ever to hear about all things automotive all week long. You're invited to join fellow car enthusiasts in becoming part of the ever-growing In Wheel Time Car Talk family. Don't forget those 30-minute podcast episodes on your favorite podcast channel. That's it for this podcast episode of the In Wheel Time Car Show. I'm Don Armstrong, inviting you to join us for our live show every Saturday morning, 8 to 11 a.m. Central on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and our InWheelTime.com website. Podcasts are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeart Podcast, Podcast Addict, TuneIn, Pandora, and Amazon Music. Keep listening, and we'll see you soon.